States and, well, Canada, North America, and Russia and China. I was told by insiders in the 1990s in America that the plan was to lead to a conflict involving China. For this reason, in the 1800s, letters were written, and particularly one particular letter, between two high-level players in the secret society network, in which the 3 world wars were described of where they were going to go. And this letter included the detail of countries that would be involved and how it would be started. And it described the First World War, with the Germans brought into conflict with the rest of Europe and America. It described the Second World War in the same terms and said it would lead to a Jewish state in Israel. And the Third World War would be triggered out of the Middle East, involving Israel as the trigger, and would bring about the final global conflict, which would lead to them being able to offer the solution to stop this ever happening again, which would be a world government and a single world army. And the idea of that is to say, if we have a single world army and we bring an end to national armies, then we can't ever again have a war. What they won't tell you is those that have manipulated the war will be the same people that offer the solution to the war, which is exactly the structure of control that they want. And I feel very strongly that Georgia, I'm not saying this war's going to happen tomorrow, but Georgia was a move on the chessboard in this direction. And I'll tell you a story that happened to me in England which relates to this. And it seems, you know, quite a minor story until it starts to play out. Last March 2008, I received a letter from a man in England who is what we call there, or called there, a traffic warden. And his job, they walk along the streets in a uniform, and they give out tickets to cars for illegal parking or whatever. You know, not many people like them for that reason, but they just do that job. And this traffic warden, he'd been a traffic warden for nearly 20 years, he wrote to me because he read my books, and he said, look, there's something I don't understand, and there's something that's really bewildering me. He said, I've been called in by my boss, and like my colleagues, he said, I've been given 3 cards, authorization cards. He said, one of the cards is to give me authorization to be a traffic warden. Okay. But the second card was what they call in Britain a pace card, and that carries the words that policemen have to say by law when they're arresting somebody. And the third card was the authorization of this man and his colleagues, traffic wardens, to go into private property without permission. So this man, who's a nice guy, he said to his boss, why do I need the statement you make to arrest people if you're a policeman, and why do I need an authorization to go into private property? And his boss said, look, I've been told to give them out, take them home, leave them until further notice. A few days later, him and a few other traffic wardens are outside the police station in this county, this town. And a policeman came out that this traffic warden had known a long time, I hadn't seen for a while. And the policeman came over and made the small talk, and then he pulled his friend aside. He said, I want to talk to you. And he said to him 4 or 5 times in this conversation, you must not breathe a word about this. He said, I've got the job, he said, in this county, and there's someone like me in every other county of the United Kingdom, policeman, whose job it is to organize in preparation for a coming war. He said, we're preparing for this war well in advance. And he said, what's expected by the government is that when this war starts, there will be massive civil unrest on the streets of Britain and protest. He said, so what's happening is that when that war starts and the the protests start, the civil unrest they're expecting, the military and ourselves, police officers, will be focusing on dealing with the civil unrest. And you, traffic wardens, private security guards and companies, closed-circuit television operators, and all these kind of people will be brought forward to do the jobs that police officers currently do while we're dealing with the civil unrest. Well, he sent me the cards and I saw them to confirm they existed. A few days after he contacted me, the British government announced that they were going to redesignate and rename traffic wardens civil enforcement officers, and they were going to give them powers, some of the powers currently that the police have. 10 days ago, all these months later after this happened, 10 days ago, the government in Britain announced that they were introducing a new designation of authority called accredited persons. And these were security guards, private security firms, CCTV operators, etc., who were going to be given accredited person status and given powers that are currently the powers of the police. And then you've got what I've been saying now way back in the 1990s. The idea is for this Third World War to involve Russia and China against the West.
Yeah. Oceania versus Eurasia, yeah.
Yeah, in the 1984 kind of scenario. And what you have now is the demonization of Russia. Have you noticed that? How suddenly we got the demonization of Russia? And what's opening up in the Ukraine, while all this is starting to go on in the Middle East, is another front against Russia. Because, you know, it's very easy to see how Russia can be pulled into this Middle Eastern conflict by supporting Syria, because destroying Syria is part of ISIS's agenda and American agenda and NATO's agenda.
And also Iran as well.
Yeah, and destroying Iran, yeah. So, and Russia would come out in support of Iran, and the same would happen with China. And so you can see how it's how the pieces in the game are being moved around to create this scenario that Pike talked about. And the idea is to basically bring everything to its knees, so that the world would have to be rebuilt in its structure and the way it operates, and that would be in the image of what they've been working towards all along: world government, world central bank, world army, world currency, centralized control of the planet. It's very easy to see with current events how it's moving in that direction, and we need to understand what the goals are, to understand what the moves towards that goal are. And when you look at it from this perspective, what is happening in the Middle East is not random. None of it's been random. Libya's not been random. Syria's not been random. None of it. And ISIS certainly isn't random. It's part of this long-term plan to take over the world by creating enormous chaos to which they can offer the order out of the chaos, their order, their new world order. Behind me is the Amari Air Base, which is very relevant in this time because it's a NATO base in Estonia. Estonia, of course, bordering Russia, and we have this Operation Atlantic Resolve, where the propaganda against Russia and how Russia is going to invade border countries has led to this build-up, the justification of this build-up of NATO resources and the NATO military operation in these border countries like Estonia. And the demonization of Russia has become so insanely ludicrous and so blatant in the sense of what it's trying to achieve. if you can make people fearful of something, whatever it is, in this case, fear of Russia, then they will not protest and even support the fact that you will take action to protect them from what you've manipulated them to fear. And so everything now is the Russians. The long-term plan that I've been exposing since way, way back in the books and talks has quite demonstrably continued apace this week. And by that, I mean the clearly systematic demonization of Russia. What I've been saying all these years, going, like I say, way back to a time when Russia was not considered a threat, when China was, it's joining the West now, it's becoming an economically Western country, and they're buying lots of things and all that stuff. Even then, what I was saying was that the plan of the global hidden hand was for a third world war between the West, predominantly, of course, led by the United States, against Russia and China. The idea is that you have a third world war between the West and Russia, China. You could throw in Iran and some other countries connected with Russia and China as well. And then you say, we have to stop this ever happening again. And so we have to centralize power in the world with a world government and have a world army and the end to national armies so that we can make sure that this never happens again. And if you look at the sequence of world wars, after the First World War, the power in the world was dramatically centralized compared with what it was before. Then you look at what happened after the Second World War, and even more so, the centralization of power on a global level was justified by the Second World War. And the idea all along has been a third world war to complete that process of creating a fully fledged global dictatorship. And this is the reason that we have this insane, ludicrous, childlike demonization of Russia. No matter what happens in the world, it's the Russians. No matter if it's apparently, supposedly manipulating American elections and elections in other countries. Evidence, take our word for it. Whether it's a threat of invading Europe, evidence, take our word for it. And so it goes on and on and on. Even Russian athletes, those who have no record whatsoever of being involved in drugs, are being banned from the Olympics.